Good morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on this 25th day of November 2019. My name is Sam Gitukune, just in time for news review, and I want to introduce the panelists so far in studio. We have Rigathi Gachagua, Member of Parliament for Mathira constituency. Karibu sana to the show. We have also Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi, Member of Parliament for Westlands. Karibu sana to the show.
Asante sana.
All right, and they're here to talk about the situation happening in Nairobi and also what we are expecting to be released tomorrow to be handed over to the President. That is the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force report that will be presented to the President tomorrow. We understand that there is supposed to be another forum on Wednesday that would ideally unveil the report to the public for reading. But shortly we'll be diving into that conversation. But first, let's take a look at what the papers are saying this morning. On the front page of the Standard, you'll see that the big names that BBI will make or break, and they have given those names or those images of Deputy President William Ruto, KANU leader and Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, and the story which is contained on page 8 of the same paper, that is of the Standard. You see that President says report will help deal with ills that have bedeviled the country, like election violence, and the Building Bridges Initiative report could make or break careers in the country's political arena. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who met a chairman of the BBI task force, that is Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji, last week, will receive the report tomorrow. And here the point is that they are free to bring it. That is the BBI report to me on Tuesday, and I assure you that as soon as I receive it, I will personally go through it and hand it to Kenyans to read. You'll be looking at some of those voices in accordance with what the President has spoken about or said, and the leaders that are in the political arena, what they have to say. But I want us to begin with a story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation. A crisis as landslide death toll hits 46. Of course, we ran a story a few minutes ago telling you of how the rescue mission continues, but is being hampered by bad weather, and also the situation that the residents of that area find themselves in. I saw a figure of about 400 people left homeless, and I want us just to reflect on that, because we see the heavy rains pounding the country and the crisis that we find ourselves in West Pokot, a landslide that has killed at least 46 so far. What are your thoughts this morning, Mheshimiwa Gachagua?
Thank you very much. I think what is happening in West Pokot is very heavy on the people of West Pokot. But granted, these of course are natural calamities, and I think the government has really, done very well in terms of mobilizing the necessary capacity, the multitask agencies to help the people of West Pokot. And the question that comes into my mind is about our capacity, to forecast weather in terms of preparedness. We seem not to have caught up, with the developed countries in terms of being able, to tell in real time, what our expectations. Because if situations like this one has been forecasted, the people of that area would have been alerted to move to a safer ground. So as sorry as we are, because of the deaths, because of the injuries, because of the desperation of the people there,
right,
I think as a country we need really to up our game in terms of being able to, in real time, forecast the weather and be able to prepare our people in areas where such calamities can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want us to introduce Senator Irungu Kangata from Murang'a County. Thank you for joining us this morning. And let me just pose it to you. So we find ourselves in the situation of 46 people dead. Of course, hundreds have lost their homes, of course, after that landslide happened. And we are a country that has a meteorological department, and I've seen an update from them, and they are still warning that the heavy rains will continue to pour across the country. How better can we manage the warnings that come from the meteorological department, and how we also organize our local communities in such areas as this in West Pokot?
For me, we need to strengthen our evacuation services, so that whenever we have such kind of warnings, we evacuate our people away from potentially harmful regions. We know the areas that are historically prone to that problem. By the way, Murang'a is one of the hotspots because of our topography. We have a lot of hills, so therefore we need to evacuate our people as soon as possible. Number two, also need to mobilize rescue services to those regions. For instance, the county governments have a major role in ensuring You dig up those regions, you open up those regions, you create a temporary bridges so that those regions are not cut off. And finally, in my own opinion, we have seen several governors failing to set aside funds for such missions.
Right.
We must understand some of these functions have been devolved pursuant to 4th schedule of the Constitution of Kenya, where some of these services are now in the hands of governors. So therefore, even as we lament and blame the national government, governors have a major role in ensuring some of these rescue services are provided to Wananchi.
And I see the story, residents said the darkness added to the confusion. A stampede ensued as rocks were coming, no one could see where soil and huge rocks were coming from, and those who were first out of their doors were either buried under the earth or hit by rocks tumbling down the hill at high speed. So you can imagine the crisis that these people have had to go through. And as we reflect on who is responsible for responding to such situations, how prepared are we as a country? Because I know even in Nairobi there are some areas that you'll see the landslides happening and affecting populations, especially in the informal settlement areas. How prepared are we as a country?
I think these things, they always find us on the wrong side, that we find that we are not ready to handle a crisis. And remember the words of the late Professor Wangari Maathai. She said that nature is very unforgiving, and if we mess up with the weather, with the nature, it will come and destroy us. And these are some of the things that we are witnessing today. That it's coming from the things we have done, how we have destroyed our environment, we have destroyed, the trees and all that. That is now the weather. When this thing comes, the prevention, when there are trees, sometimes the prevention is a bit higher and it hold ground. And number two, also our weather protection. We should know that Kenya is too small for us even just to project weather within just Kenya alone. We have to look at the wider region, like look across the Africa, across the other continents, what is happening in the weather situation, so that we can accurately predict what is going to happen about the weather. Because these rains have just like caught us unawares. We didn't know. We have just seen a lot of rain at the time when we normally don't have rain around this time. Yeah.
Oh, all right, of course, we continue to condole with the families that have lost their loved ones. And like I said, the other man says that rains will not subside until December. Floods continue to cause death and destruction as heavy rains continue in most parts of the country with no signs of subsiding. But then again, Mheshimiwa Gachagua, even as this happens, there is obviously the better side of rains. And there has been this question all over, all the time about how well we're able to harvest water. Are we doing better in Nyeri County, harvesting the water that we are receiving now, so that we're able to prepare even for a situation when there will not be sufficient water?
I think in Nyeri County, we've truly been blessed. We've had very good rains, and the rains have gone into very good use. Everybody has food, and the animals are okay. But we need to do much more. We have a problem in Kieni. Kieni constituency is semi-arid. It is 52% of the entire Nyeri County. And there were 2 dams that were envisaged to be implemented by the Jubilee government. And these dams, up to today, for the last 4 years, they have not been done.
And what is the explanation?
Well, we have many issues. We have many problems. Of course, we have loss of focus, And my own understanding and my own belief is that we really need to focus on the Jubilee agenda, the big 4, construction of dams, And somehow I think we are losing focus, and digressing in issues that are really not a very big priority. Like now, the people of Kieni, their priority are those 2 dams. Anything else is really, really out of the way. So there is still much more to be done in terms of trying to harvest the water during the rainy season, so that it can be used during the dry spell.
Right.
And our people are very hardworking, and they depend on the rain-fed agriculture, which is not working. So we really need to come up with a very, very serious dams, which is part of the Big Four in terms of food security.
Right.
Have dams so that we can harvest all this water and keep it for the dry spell. Yeah.
And Senator, is it a possibility that these dreams, allow me to call them dreams, of putting up dams, because recently when we had some of the dams proposed, Harold, Kimorel, and the graft situation that rocked that, it's now been stopped until reorganization of that, because the president said that it has to be replanted so that money that had been allocated should be spent lower than that. But how do we get on course? It's 3 years to the expiry of the current presidential term. How do we get on course to ensure that the promises that were given, that so many dams will be built, can ultimately be put in place?
Let me say that to the best of my knowledge, I'm aware there are several dams that are being built. Some of them are not in that large scale like those 2 dams in the Rift Valley. But I can tell you, as a matter of fact, government on a continual basis has been building dams. The other issue is the issue that you alluded that the President Uhuru's term is almost ending, and therefore you're not so sure as to whether we'll be able to finish what he has started. I can tell you there is concept which is called perpetual succession in government. Once this presidency terminates, the other president, as a matter of fact, they look where we took our work. I'm sure they are going to ensure they finish. Be that as it may, I also foresee a situation where they'll be completed. It may not even take 2 years to ensure those dams are being completed. So long as there's some budgetary provisions, and to the best of my knowledge, I know Ministry of Irrigation has been well funded by the government. So they are going to be finished. We are going to have those dams, and maybe they are going to address some of this problem. Remember, there were 2 dams in that region. It is only one that was cancelled, and the reason was quite justifiable, because the documents from the consultants were too old. They were not updated.
Right.
So, but for that other one, the viability assessment was done. It was deemed.
But it was to be reviewed. It was to cost less than that.
Yes, of course, which is a positive thing. And therefore, it will be completed. I have no doubt about that this government wants to ensure everything that it promised Wananchi has been delivered.
And Honorable Wanyonyi, do you agree that because there's perpetual succession in governments, that we should now sit pretty and say that whatever President Kenyatta doesn't finish will be done by someone else? But if you look at that and compare with the fact that you make promises, it's up to you to fulfill them within the period of time that you've been elected, how do those two reconcile?
I think government does not end with the exit of the chief executive. What has been, normally when you look at the projection and planning of government, we cannot, it's not very easy, for example, to do an event in a period of 1 year or even 5 years. It might go beyond the 5 years time,
right.
But depending with the planning and also availability of resources, sometimes there might be project that maybe it will take 2 years, 3 years, and if that's not possible, still, if the current head of state exceeds the stage, then whoever takes over, make sure that the projects of government must be done and completed, because that is a government project. Is not for the individual, it's not for the occupants of the office, it's for the government to continue working and giving services to the people beyond the hold of the office at the time.
But then again, I mean, you make promises that you're going to put up several dams. You make promises that you're going to build a stadium in different parts of the country. Then it comes to the expiry of the term, you haven't done that. Now you have to burden the office that is coming in. Of course, it's made up of politicians. I mean, how does that really sit with the expectations of the public that you promised us and that is why we voted for you, but you've not been able to achieve it before the expiry of your term?
I think when they do that, they will have sat down and planned and looked at the kind of resources that are needed. And by the way, when he exceeds, they will have even planned. Those resources must be in place. And maybe what is just remaining is the implementation of the project. And implementation, sometimes it depends on many factors. It may overlap time and then get to another stage. But sometimes, if it is properly done, it can be done within even the period that it has been projected. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And of course, the conversation continues. You can text us your views on 22422. You can tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Daybreak. We'll return shortly and we'll be talking about the conversation around Nairobi County. We've seen a number of members of parliament coming up to say that they want the government of Mike Mbovi Sonko over the past 2 or so years audited to look at how money has been spent. You're talking about 52 billion shillings that has been spent in the last 2 financial years. We'll be talking about that and see what exactly has rocked the county, the city county of Nairobi. Back in a moment.